While today seen as a monarchic European tradition, many American presidents, even many somewhat recent ones, had their own coat of arms. Honestly, more US presidents had heraldry of their own than I previously expected. I at first assumed that only the very early presidents from around the founding of the US would have heraldry from the colonial era. It was nice to see that heraldry didn't disappear outright, and the American Heraldry Society has detailed histories on these presidential arms. This coat of arms serves as the basis for the flag of the District of Columbia, so you might recognize it. His family from the male line did not have any arms, but from the female line he used the arms of the Boylston family. I always liked this coat of arms, though Thomas Jefferson didn't use it much, instead using a seal he designed with the motto, "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." It contains the arms of John Adams in the fourth quarter, and the top left quarter looks more like the design of a seal than a heraldic design, which symbolizes the Adams family. None of his Dutch ancestors had a coat of arms, and it was only allegedly on his carriage, not even on his bookplate where it would have commonly been displayed in this era. This one is one of the least well attributed, with only a picture from the Harrison Mansion in Knox County, Indiana. After President Harrison's untimely death in 1841, we wouldn't see another president with a coat of arms until 1881, 11 presidencies later. However, two presidents from this time did have crests. Zachary Taylor didn't like so-called frivolous pomp, including heraldry, though his family did use a crest. Having a crest without a coat of arms is interesting to say the least. Macmillan in the American Heraldry Society has an interesting quote by Arthur C. Fox Davies on this phenomena. "A crest cannot exist without a coat of arms, so that those people, and they are many, who vehemently assert a right to the crest of their family whilst admitting they have no right to arms, stand self-convicted heraldically both of having spoken unutterable rubbish and of using a crest to which they can have no possible right." Interestingly enough, not the first time we encounter an anvil. The existence of this crest contrasts the crest of Taylor, with the public now warm towards the idea of politicians having a coat of arms, to the point President Hayes was asked via letter if his family had arms in 1879. In 1880, he would describe his crest in his diary. President Garfield was actually aware of his arms before even becoming president, with a very religious motto. The American Heraldry Society has an interesting story in regards to this, with newspapers attacking President Arthur during his 1884 election campaign over not just having a coat of arms, but the fact they belonged to a family entirely unrelated to the president. While these arms were used by him, the connection he has to them is somewhat questionable, since the ancestor, Sir Guy de Cleveland, they allegedly inherited from, may just be legendary, and no arms were ever officially given to a Cleveland. Though, Macmillan writes, from an English point of view, the lack of official validation, even though they were used, would in itself be decisive to deny any legal right to the arms. From an American perspective, an argument might be made that a colonist who arrived in New England in 1635 with the arms customarily used by his family had a perfect right to use them in America without regard to what heraldic officialdom back in England might or might not think. Benjamin Harrison used the same arms as his grandfather, William Henry Harrison. The connection between Rose and Roosevelt is quite explicit, since Roosevelt is Dutch, meaning Rosefield. They have Dutch lineage, and as such have a Dutch coat of arms. Like the US is today, the Netherlands was a republic for a long period of time, and commoners adopted their own arms without the heraldic rules and organizations that England had. As such, people could use the arms of their parents without having to differentiate the design for each family member, as was English tradition, though it is no longer followed and was done inconsistently when it was. There is an example of differentiation in this version of George Washington's coat of arms, with an added crescent to make it distinct. Calvin Coolidge never used it in his lifetime, but it is attributed to his family. Though it didn't have to be, his arms were different to that of Theodore Roosevelt. With Eisenhower, we see the return of the anvil, a very unique color scheme. John F. Kennedy brings us the first Irish arms of a US president, and in 1961 it was presented by the Irish ambassador to JFK in a ceremony. A classic-looking combination of the arms of O. Kennedy and the arms of Fitzgerald. A company called the American College of Heraldry and Arms Incorporated tried to be a heraldic institution like the official ones in England, and presented Lyndon B. Johnson with a coat of arms in 1968. Reagan and his wife originally used the arms of an Irish family, but would learn from Adolf Karlowski, a heraldic designer, that they were just bucket shop arms from a family of the same name, and Adolf Karlowski would design them a new coat of arms. These were the second Irish arms to be given to a president, and Clinton would be the last president to receive arms currently as of 2024. Unfortunately, none of the 21st century presidents have any heraldry, though many presidents are still alive, so they have time to sort out their coat of arms. All these coat of arms prove that heraldry is not inherently antithetical to republicanism. Despite there being more arms than I initially expected, I'm surprised by how much we don't know, and by how much is only attested and attributed when it comes to presidential heraldry. It is also fairly humanizing how even the presidents can fall for misinformation and myths regarding a topic outside their expertise.